Welcome, everyone. This Sunday when we normally, this is the Sunday before Thanksgiving, we recognize, hey, this is a great season to learn how to give thanks. So if you have been with me, and in fact you're looking back every year as a pastor on this date, the Sunday before Thanksgiving, what did I preach about? Giving thanks. Okay, so if you've been with me, guess what? Every single year. And after a while, you run out of passages to preach. So you have to do retreads. And they're okay too. But actually, even in the retreads, you're really only doing one thing. You're kind of like encouraging people to count your blessings. Write down, everybody. Have you heard these sermons before? From me? Write down, everybody. What are you thankful for? And it's almost like pastors have to guilt you. Okay, you horrible spiritual people, you don't give thanks at any point in the year, and so at least today, do your obligatory giving thanks to God. And people can continue to do this year after year after year. There's nothing wrong with that, because in fact, this is such a central part, and rightfully so, of our relationship with God. We see in places in the book of Romans, for example, where one of the characteristics of a person whose heart is disconnected, disengaged, in rebellion against God is revealed by the language of, they did not worship, they did not give thanks. So it is a very central thing, rightfully so, when it comes to worship. We can spend a long time, as many people do, unpacking why we should be giving thanks, especially in a season that we've marked out for giving thanks. But what I wanted to do today is actually go a little further than just leave you with count your blessings, feel good, get ready for turkey, and then shopping. Okay? Thanksgiving is far more than simply what that's supposed to be. And at the same time, we are in a certain series where we're talking about what does it mean to have a life, a lifestyle. We're having a first-hand relationship with God. We are sharing with Him our deepest thoughts and our needs, as well as we're hearing from Him. We're really letting Him speak into our world through His scriptures as we're listening for even His voice. So we've been talking about this, we've been practicing it, even in our grace groups, where every single day we're actually stretched to spend at least 15, sometimes 20 minutes just with God. And as a way of trying to develop this life with Him. And so today, if you saw the message title, we're actually not talking about Thanksgiving directly, we're actually talking about, we're talking about what it means to, so that's like that. Ask God. The sermon title is asking God. We talked a couple weeks ago about hearing God. And that's such an important part of our prayer life that we just really don't do enough of. That all of our prayer is responsive speech. When God has said something, when He has made something clear, when He has spoken, we respond to Him through our prayer life. So we started with hearing God. But communication and heart-to-hearts are always two ways. So we're going to talk about what it means to ask God, to request things from Him, as is a part of a lot of our prayer lives, especially if you've been in the church or if you've known what it means to pray. You come to God and you ask Him for help. You ask Him for things, right? Well, where did we get that from? We got that from Jesus. We got that from all through the scriptures, that the posture of all the people, in fact, what it means to pray for most of us is simply what? To ask God. We get that, a full-blown encouragement actually to say, we should be asking and asking all the time. But today what I want to do is I want to link the two. As we find in one of the scripture verses that we read. Okay? What does it mean to ask God in every circumstance to meet us, to engage us, to come to our aid, to reveal Himself through prayer and petition, but with thanksgiving? How do those two work together? How do we have a life where we're constantly asking God for His intervention, for His goodness, for His blessing, for His help, while at the same time asking it with thanksgiving? How do these two work? Because they don't always seem like the same. If you've seen people who actually are asking all the time, usually they are not the very thankful people, right? They ask and you give to them, and they run away. And then when they need something, they come to you and they ask again. There's people like that. And so usually when we think about this, they're not intertwined. But in the scriptures, often they are deeply intertwined. And you can't ask right unless you're in the heart and the posture, unless you have an attitude of gratitude, you can't ask right. And thanksgiving, a true sense of thanksgiving, will prompt us, will give us a very access to God to say, I can and I must ask God for more. That they are very much intertwined. So I want to walk through that on Thanksgiving. That we are going to know, in some ways, hopefully, when we remind ourselves and be reminded of, what does it mean to have a prayer life? Where we're asking God with thanksgiving. And why is this important? Because I'm going to give you the crux of all of this. Asking God is not coming to somebody you don't know very well, hoping that he will be good to you. Asking God is actually coming to one who is committed to you, who loves you, who has already done so much for you, has promised you much. And actually, it's his delight to hear your requests and then to answer, to build a relationship with him. And thanksgiving is actually the posture in which we really get to learn how to enjoy the fact that he is that good. And then open the door to be able to receive him and know him that good all more. We're talking about asking God today. And we're seeing that in the scriptures, most of the prayers are requests. So I had a professor when I was in seminary, that was Eugene Peterson, and he would talk, and I have a quote about it later on, he would talk about how our prayer lives are not very good because we spend so much time and are still caught up in our own selves, we don't really realize what God is about, and so forth. And so when he said this one thing, it just kind of shocked me. And he said, but when you look at the scriptures, most of prayer is not thanksgiving, it is asking. Okay? There is thanksgiving in a lot of the prayers, and you can do a whole scriptural search. But when you see Jesus, he spends a ton of time asking his Father. Isn't that interesting? I'll reflect on that a little while. Most of the prayers in the scriptures by the spiritual greats, Moses, Daniel, Elijah, Jesus, Paul, they are requests. They're asking God for intervention, asking God for help. Jesus even tells us this should be a huge part of our prayer life. He encourages us and he says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. You see this kind of progression here, and most pastors get this right. They say, hey, the tense of this verb is not just, and in the original language, there's some verb tenses actually are like static, one and done. This one's continuous. So some people actually translate to themselves, ask and keep asking, seek and keep knocking, knock and keep knocking. That there is this sense that there's an increasing even intensity in this. You don't just ask. When it was over there, you go and hunt them down and find. And when you found them and the door's closed, bang on the door until you get through. There is this intensity in which we are encouraged, even commanded. These are commands. This is not when you feel like it, when all is lost. But actually, no, let this be a central part of the way you pray. There's a reason why. In this passage, you see, part of the reason is there is this encouragement. All of those who have this perspective and this heart to say, God is going to answer, you will get rewarded. But if you look carefully, there's ways to ask that is not appropriate. And I grew up in a church in a setting where you were supposed to ask all the time. Ask loudly, with a high sense of volume. So if actually you weren't praying unless you were screaming top of your lungs. I don't know if you grew up in a church like that. That was the church context I was in. Usually it was the prayer warrior ladies. We would have morning prayer at the church that I was serving in for a little while. And 4 a.m, these ladies would come out and they're screaming at the top of their lungs, Lord, Lord, and they're crying out. And I could not match their intensity. I got to tell you, pastors were all kind of scared of these ladies. Because they would go off and for hours. Like I would lose my voice, but they would not. I would actually wouldn't know what to pray for, but they were like the Energizer Bunny. They would just keep going. And I thought, wow, that's what it means to pray. And I'm not knocking their prayer. When I look at Jesus, there's actually ways to say, you're asking, the volume of prayer is not what he's after. Just the intensity itself is not what he's after. He's after actually what's behind that intensity. What's behind that volume. The volume is not only. He says in verse 9, so 8 and 9, when you pray, do not keep babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. In other religions, at that time especially, when you prayed, it was how hard you prayed. It was how much you put into it. Some of those religions actually, if you didn't get God to hear you, their God to hear you, like Baal, you would have to scream louder or even cut yourself to get his attention. And that's what earned you his ear. And that's what earned you his response. But he's saying, no. That's not how God reacts. It's not by the intensity alone or the volume alone. He says, you don't have to get his attention. His attention's already on you. You don't have to alert him to what's going on and what your needs are. He already knows. Like a good father. So there's ways to ask, but that's not the way he wants us to ask. And that's part of the reason why. Because if you're actually asking with a heart that's already predisposed to thanksgiving, you're realizing the one that you're asking is that good. He is that gracious. He is that wise. He is that loving. Somebody who has received so much goodness from somebody is just really thankful. Guess what? When you look at that person that has been so good to you, the way that you see them is different. The way you ask is different. I think God asks us to ask. He commands us to ask. Because in the asking and the receiving, in the thanking and in the asking, something happens. We are brought into the right relationship with Him. We learn how to actually depend on God. We learn that the things that we really need often are not things that we think we need, and don't come from us. We can't get everything we need just by our hard work or our wit and wiles. I think one of the key reasons why God asks us to ask is because in the asking, with thanksgiving, something happens. In the asking, anybody who really begins to ask embraces humility. Okay? Anybody who really lives a life of asking a lot, it's this recognition that I can't protect my own family as much as I thought I could. I can't because the world's dangerous. I can't bring justice because I'm a broken person too. I can't fix everything. I can't even supply all of my needs at times. I can't prepare for my children as hard as I work. There are variables out there that I can't work out. I can't find that person who's going to make my life whole sometimes. I can't get that perfect job with just my resume. Okay? I need help. Humility is a word that oftentimes in our culture we don't like. We don't like to be humbled. We like pride. I have pride in my work. I have pride in my person. I have pride in my tribe and in my country. Well, that's hard to say these days, but I have pride. Honestly, the word for the scriptures for pride is an ugly word. It is a word of saying, I don't need God. I'm enough, and I'm going to make my own way. It is a radical rejection of a relationship with God. The word that describes one who is in right relationship, and increasingly so, is humble. Because God himself is not prideful. He is humble. Okay? And so think of it this way. If humility, as we think of it as a bad word, as it makes you feel low, I've been humbled, I'm low, I'm worthless compared to everybody else, I'm not that great. If that's what you think humility is, versus pride, I'm awesome, I'm the best thing that's in sliced bread. If humility is that, then how is God humble? Does God think of himself, man, I'm a loser. You know, I made all these people and they sinned against me. I sent my son to die on the cross and they reject me. Oh, woe is me. Is that what's going through God's mind? How is God, Christ, humble then? We have to redirect our understanding of what humility is. Humility means you have an authentic response to what is real. Okay? So, for example, let's say you are a basketball player and you're really good. I mean, like, you can dunk on anybody. But you get to the NBA, right? And you get blocked left and right. You can't do anything. You're like, oh man, it wasn't as good as I thought. You've been humbled. Doesn't mean that you were anywhere less than you were, but now you can see yourself in reality. Okay? When you come face to face with a God who is that good, that holy, that loving, okay, and you realize, man, I'm not that good. I'm not that holy. I'm not that loving. Then you're in a place of humility. Because you can see him, and you know where you are. You're finite, but he's not. He's that big. He's that good. And when you're in a relationship, right relationship with that God, you're in a great place. You don't have to make overtures. I got to take care of this. I'm so awesome. You don't have to go off and pump yourself up. You have to do no promotion. Instead, you can see him, and in reflection, this is where I am. This is the the place where asking does, you begin to realize you can't get there. You can't get where you need to go, you want to go where God wants you to go without this relationship. It's not you're keeping down low, it's actually you're being brought into the reality of things. And the reality is God is good all the time. His goodness is bigger than we imagined. It's wiser, okay? It's thought out and planned for many more years longer. It is deeper. It is beyond what we can imagine. We taste it, but it's further than that. I think it's one of the reasons why God asks us to ask. Number one, for us to really know what it means to embrace humility. Because if we are in pride and disconnected with Him, we don't have a relationship, we're in big trouble. But I think it's also as we get into asking and the thanking, that beautiful cycle, ask, receive, thanks, ask, receive, thanks, it gets locked in who God really is. He is that good all the time. Jesus uses this argument to say, why should we ask with this kind of both intensity but with faith? He says, which of you, if your son or daughter asks for bread, will give him a stone? Okay? How mean is that? Right? Eat this. Right? Or if he asks for a fish, we'll give him a snake. Right? What kind of father would torture and torment? Some fathers do, unfortunately. But he's saying, in that culture, fathers are generally good. How could you look at your child or a young kid who's hungry and says, I'm hungry, and say, here, eat this, here's a stone, or a snake? You would never do that, right? In fact, I was reflecting on this. I cooked dinner, breakfast for my daughters for most of their lives. It was, as a pastor, my evenings were almost always out. And so I couldn't be there for dinner for them. And so my wife took care of the dinners, but I did the breakfast. In fact, I called myself Daddy Diner, right? So in the morning, they actually took advantage of me. Because I would be like, okay, what do you want to eat? Because I had built up my repertoire. I can do pancakes, I can do waffles, I can do French toast, I can do bacon, ham, you name it. I can do crepes. Okay, I learned how to do crepes, right? So Daddy Diner, I have a menu out. And instead of ordering one, they were like, I want pancakes, I want waffles. I'm like, oh. Right? And I'm like, what did I do to myself? But it was my way of saying, don't you know, I love you and I don't have much time with you, but I want to tell you. They weren't always thankful. They would eat half of it. It was really good. Trust me, I would taste it really good. They'd be like, whatever. But as a father, I would always want to give them something yummy. I would always want to express to them. And my wife, she would always complain because there would be no ice cream in the house except by me. Right? Because I would always want to express to them, not only for their hunger, but also just to say how much they're loved, even through food. And so Jesus uses this argument. If you, and I'm not a perfect father, I know fathers who are better than me, are incredibly thoughtful and all much better. If you then, though you are evil, not good as much as the Father is, not great, okay, still want to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask Him? You see what Jesus is on about? The asking is so you can begin to see how really good He really is. Okay? And when you begin to really see that, your natural response is to give Him thanks. Okay? Because you're like, God, you're so good to me. Thank you. And because you know He's that good, when you're in trouble, what do? You don't feel sheepish about asking. You go right into His face. Because you know He's that good. And then when you receive His response of goodness, you're thankful. Deeply thankful. I didn't realize how good you were. And then next time, you can ask even more. You see how that works? They are one and the same. They revolve around the goodness of God that you have come to know in relationship. Even evil fathers, who are not great fathers, want to give good gifts to their children. Now, I have this analogy that I realize most of us might not get because I asked in the first service and I'm like, anybody see the Christmas story? And half of them said no. It's like, oh, okay, this is my illustration. Anybody see the Christmas story? Okay, that's about half. Okay, they have this on one of the channels actually all day long. It's like a modern classic. It's not a great movie, but it's actually a very memorable movie. And in the movie, this guy, Ralphie, he gets obsessed. On Christmas time, he wants this Red Ryder carbine, right? He wants it so bad. he's just dreaming about it, like he's daydreaming constantly, thinking about how he's going to ask and all of the strategy and so on and so forth. And his parents, and he finally blurts it out, and he kicks himself as he blurts it out too early, and his mom goes, "You'll shoot your eye out." And so he's like, he's just dashed. Oh. But he won't give up. He's thinking about how am I going to get this, how am I going to get this? And he writes his paper on this, and he gets a C. He said he thought he couldn't get an A+, he gets a C. And his whole Christmas season he's dreaming about, he wants this rifle so badly, and he thinks nobody sees him. His memories of his dad is this guy who's, foul-mouthed, and he's not really aware of what's going on. And the surprise of his life is that his dad saw him and actually bought him the rifle, right? Even evil fathers know how to give good gifts. They see the longing in their children's heart. And what does God say? That's what you should think about when you begin to bring your requests to God. Because He's that much wiser, loving, good than any of the fathers you can imagine. I had a good father. And in some ways, his goodness was, he used to be so generous. So we grew up pretty poor in a lot of ways. We came over from Korea with like $100 in 1972. And they went to work right away. And so I always felt like we just didn't have enough. I think he saw that. He didn't want that to be the constant memory. So I have this memory of him actually taking me to Toys R Us, because this is when Toys R Us was around. And it was big. Went to Toys R Us, and I was so sheepish. And he said, "You can buy anything in the store." I'm like, I knew we weren't doing that well, even as a young boy. And I said, "Really, Daddy?" He's like, "You can buy anything you want." "Really, Daddy?" And I went and got the chocolate bar. And he looked at me and he was really sad. Kind of like saying to himself, I'm just interpreting because as a father I can understand. "You think that's the measure of my generosity? It's the measure of my love." So he says, "No, you can get anything you want." "Really, Daddy?" So I picked up this little Matchbox toy. He goes, "You can get anything you want." I came home with 2 big boxes. Okay, that's as far as I believed my dad's goodness and his ability to pay was. But he was happy. He was so happy because the whole time I wasn't asking for anything because I thought he wasn't able to, didn't want to give. I did not know my father's heart. So that little experience taught me just a little. I'm so thankful for that, because even if my father was not able to provide all of this, everything I ever wanted, my Heavenly Father is so rich. He is so wise. He is so loving. But my father also knew how. He's a good father. Knew how to say no. There are times when actually I asked, and I asked big. Okay, I did one of my Ralphies. When I was a junior in college, in high school, I wanted to get a muscle car, because all my friends had muscle cars, and they were kind of not that expensive. It was within my reach. All I needed was just a little help for a down payment, a cosign, and I had already worked out the math of how many hours I had to work at Baskin-Robbins to pay for my 6.6 Trans Am. I had it all worked out, right? So I went to my dad and said, "Dad, you can be so proud of me. I worked it all out. Look, this is how much I'm going to make. This is how much I need to pay. All I need is for you to give me help with the down payment and cosign." And he said, "No." And it shattered me. I was like, "You don't understand, Dad. You know how important this is to me. I've been dreaming about this. I can do this. You're blocking me. I can be responsible." And I was so sad. I'm like, I couldn't even ask him anymore. And then later on, he saw my sadness and he explained it to me. He says, "I know you want this bad, but I don't want you to get so caught up in a car, because life is not about this. Right now it might seem that way to you. A couple years you're going to be in college. You have to be studying. I don't want you to be in debt to pay for this car that was so important to you for this moment." He knew how to say no. And just like that, our Father, who is so much wiser, my dad was so right. I'm so thankful for that. He hurt my feelings. I was like, my dad sucks. I hate my dad. But I realized he was so wise. The world that I thought, and all the values that were so important, shifted in just a year and a half. And it didn't cost me that much not to have a 6.6 Trans Am during high school. Okay? I look back, I'm so thankful. Good dads know how to look at a tantrum child and still say no. Who are begging and asking all for the wrong reasons and not understanding. and say no. Okay? For example, child has a gummy vitamin and loves it and wants another and another and another. If you're a good parent, you have to say no because too many vitamins can kill you. Okay? I made the mistake of bringing them to India, and I warned them, you can't give too many, but I think some kids were close to getting poisoned because the parents didn't realize, just give it to them, right? But actually, no. Kids can't understand, how can it be bad to have only one? Why not have 2? Why not have 10? This is so yummy. Why stop? Right? But as a parent, you're wiser. Okay? You will stand up to a petulant child who actually is demanding and going to tantrums because you love the child more than the child wants what he wants. Okay? Even good things like milk. I was a single person. I saw this one family, mother and father, who they refused to give milk to their child, and I was like, what kind of parents are you? I judged them so badly. I mean, it's like, you're the worst parents ever. Like, that's disgusting. And like, your child wants milk. Milk does the body good. How could you prevent the child from wanting milk? Only until later on, you realize some kids love milk so much, they won't eat solid food. They won't get into a healthy relationship with solid food. You have to curb their milk diet in order for them to learn how to eat solid food. But the kid is like, milk, I want milk. Everybody's like, give your kid milk. But they're like, no. Because they're that much more loving, that much more wiser. And even, single me realized there are times when our Father, in His incredible wisdom and love, will say no. We won't encounter that kind of wisdom until we're in a place of asking and thanking. I thank my dad for saying no to me. I thank God sometimes when He doesn't answer some of the prayers that I have prayed. Okay? Eugene Peterson, I bring him up again because, he just actually passed. He's with the Lord now. But I remember just in conversations with him and also in just classes that I took, redirected what I thought, what I understood prayer to be. And one of the quotes that I still treasure was, he was reminding us and saying, praying most often, and I don't know if he's sure about that, but it could be, most often does not get us what we want, but what God wants. Okay? Let that sink in. This is not a good promotion for ask, seek, and knock, right? Because you're going to get it! Name it and claim it, you're going to get it! But actually, this is such a beautiful reminder. No. You might not get it. Because that God is that good and He's loving. Praying most often doesn't get us what we want, but what God wants, because God wants something bigger and better for us. What God wants is sometimes something quite at variance. It differs with what we can see to be in our best interests. But we don't find that out because we just don't ask. Or when we ask, we don't ask with thanksgiving. We don't see this as God is loving and good. We see Him as some kind of vending machine that if we just put the right number of change and shake it just right, and put the right things that we should get, and we don't get angry. But in fact, what it means to have a relationship with God is we get to see that in His yeses, we get to be so thankful. In His no's, we get to be so thankful. We get to see how good and loving He is, even when He says no. I love this quote by this woman named Benitha Rendell Risner. She says, the Father said no to the Son. If you see Jesus' prayers, there's a lot of asking the Father. He asked the Father, I don't want this cup of suffering. Let it pass. I don't want to have to go to the cross. But yet not my will, but yours be done. He ends up going to the cross. Father did not answer Jesus' prayer. Let this cup of suffering pass. Instead, Jesus had to drink it. What is the consequence of this no from the Father? That no brought about the greatest good in all of history. Something to think about. Our asking is not just for our receiving yes. Our asking is to get to know who the Father is. The good, it releases and forwards the good that God wants to bring in partnership, in relationship with us. Everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be opened. It might not necessarily open the door to what you thought you wanted or you even needed. But God, in His incredible goodness and love, will open and will bring. Because He is such a generous King. We have to think about that. Even in his no's are generous. When we get to see that, our very approach to our asking changes. It's not trying to finagle, say the right words or the right volume. It's not trying to manipulate. It's this place of trust and thanks. Everything I have is from you. You've promised so much. And so the thanks begins to appreciate the way he's loved you and how good he is, and gives you all the more direction, force to actually ask right. That's why I love this verse. When you're in trouble, when you're filled with anxiety, when you begin to realize, man, I'm not enough. This world is crazy. I don't know what's going to happen in this situation for the people that I care about, or just like my own life. There's this beautiful encouragement. Do not be anxious about anything. Don't put your energy into all that anxiety and meditating about all that's wrong. Change your perspective. Come before God and begin to ask him. But not ask him out of this Hail Mary, maybe he won't, or most likely he won't because he hates me. He's not there. I can't trust him. He wasn't there. Instead, he says, ask with thanksgiving. This kind of asking opens doors. This kind of asking moves us in deeper relationship with him, opens the kingdom, brings good. This is what we get to do. We get to petition him. Specific needs. Specific. This is where my heart is going. We might be all wrong. We might be asking for the wrong thing. We might be so sure that this is what God wants to do, but he hears us, and he opens a different door sometimes. What he wanted for us, what's even bigger and better than we couldn't imagine. Petitions are specific. Okay? If somebody comes to you and they want you to sign a petition that's going to go, and they're going to try to bring some kind of legislation, it's not like, sign this blank check petition. No, it's like, we have specific requests that we want to make about the environment, about a racial policy, whatever it may be. It's specific. We get to petition God specifically. He might say no, but in the response, when we have come with an attitude of thanksgiving, we get to see what he was about anyway. This life, petitioning out of thanks, is how Jesus lived and how we're called to live. Gratitude and generosity are linked. Not just, if you are thankful, you will be generous to other people. If you recognize the generosity of God in your life, it builds thanksgiving. And if you know somebody's that generous, you'll be that much more prone to ask. Even if they say no. Okay? Because you know who they are. That's the cycle that God wants to build us in. I think that's the very pattern of the Lord's Prayer. Okay? That's the pattern of the Lord's Prayer. That's how we're called to pray. Because it starts with this recognition, who are you asking? Not some stranger, powerful force in heaven that looks at you and says, I don't like you, you're going to ask for bread, I'm going to give you a stone, you ask for fish, I'm going to give you a snake. A father. Okay. Now some of our fathers were like that. Some of our fathers were not very nice. They were behind the newspaper, this is my generation, and they wouldn't really engage you. But actually, we're talking about our Father in heaven. The best Father, most powerful, generous, wise Father we can ever imagine. Our Father in heaven. You start there. And then you start making requests. Did you know that the Lord's Prayer is one address, our Father in heaven, 6 requests? Did you realize that? The Lord's Prayer is you're starting off in this relationship, and then you're asking him. But the things that are in the Lord's Prayer that we're supposed to ask often are the ones, not the ones that we ask. We spend all our time asking for stuff oftentimes that are actually not in the pattern or in the content of the Lord's Prayer. Because we oftentimes don't get what we want because it's in variance with what God wants to bring. So let's look at what we're supposed to see, what God wants to bring. What God wants to answer, what God is going to bring in his generosity and his love. How we're taught to pray. First request, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Okay, be honest, when was the last time you prayed that? God, I want this so bad! Not the Red Rider or the 6.6 liter Trans Am. I want your name to be hallowed on earth as it is in heaven. I want everyone to think of you and know you and honor you as this God who is so generous and so loving, so present and so good. Okay? Why is that so important? It sounds like we're supposed to pray almost like a sycophant, like a fanboys and fangirls. Ooh. But no. What happens when the world hallows God? Okay? Understands and in right relationship with God. Injustice goes out the door. Okay? The world is transformed. That's what heaven's going to look like. Everybody in right relationship with God. There's something about this that we just don't pay attention to. There's another part to this that we have to recognize. You can't pray this prayer if your agenda is, hallowed be my name. I want to walk in and people treat me like a VIP. I want the gold star status. At the airport, at the gate, I want to be the first one to sit down, right? I want people to treat me. I want all this good stuff. I want all my friends on social media to think I'm the most, good-looking and well-received person. When you're after all of that, when you're after your name, you can't be after God's name. So what is this? Ooh, that's embracing humility again. Asking without thanksgiving, without humility, places you in a far different corner than right before God's face in His throne. But asking this prayer, hallowed be your name, and you actually enter into it because you realize God and His kingdom and His name, when they are in place, everything is better for you than you could have ever imagined, and your loved ones, and the world. Yeah. Hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done. It is actually kind of hard to pray. Wait a minute. I'm supposed to pray for this the whole time? Your name, your kingdom, not my kingdom. I can't be king. I can't rule my own life. I don't get to do what I want to do. I don't ask for my agenda as much as when your kingdom comes, the things that I always really, really wanted and need are going to be coming to me in spades. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This kind of prayer, starting off, embracing humility, coming before God's face in thanksgiving, wanting those things, it changes the way you pray. It changes what you begin to receive. It changes what you begin to be thankful for. And then, it shifts to a second panel where you talk about specifics, petitions for things that you would think that you wouldn't necessarily have to ask God for. When was the last time, God, I really need dinner because I'm hungry? Yeah, I'm really hungry and I really would love an amazing Thanksgiving banquet. Please, God, I trust you for this. Thank you. When was the last time you thought that? Okay. Most of the time it's like, oh, it's showed up. I'm just going to, mouth thanks God and so on and so forth. This verse actually is very humbling itself in some sense. Because it's actually saying, even my daily needs, my very health, what I need to live, I'm so dependent upon you, and I find you come through again and again and again, like manna. Okay? The people of God, they survived in the wilderness with no food for 40 years. Can you imagine that? Food miraculously showed up in perfect supply for millions of people for 40 years. Do you know what kind of logistics that would take? It's crazy. But that's actually what they were being taught, to actually say, every day when I don't have enough, I trust that you're going to provide, and it's going to show up, and I'm so thankful, and it's from you. This verse actually has been translated, I'll say spend just a little time here, I won't keep too long, but it's been translated in different ways. I've even heard sermons where people actually try to say, it's not about daily bread, but they take one, because it's a little hard to translate this daily word. It's not found in a lot of literature. So they say, oh, it means tomorrow's bread. It's this eschatological, or thinking about, God, we want this bread of heaven. We want this thing that you're trying to bring. And that's a nice thought. But honestly, there's a reason why this is translated daily bread. They actually were rummaging around archaeologically in garbage dumps, these old cities. They couldn't figure out what this word meant, really, until they began to look at the receipts. in the garbage dumps, at the bakeries, for fresh bread. Isn't that interesting? I love that. Jesus is so practical incarnation. I need the bread for today, the fresh bread. Have you ever had fresh bread before? Okay. I don't know what it is. New York is good with bagels and pizza, with this, but fresh bread is so good. I don't know what it is. I can just go get some fresh bread and I can eat the whole half by myself. It's like, what happened? Right? And it's so enjoyable. It's so satisfying. Okay, I'm a guy. Okay, guys don't like bread. I don't know what it is, but fresh bread is so good. It's a way of saying, God, you're providing exactly what I need with joy in the very moment that I need it. And I depend on you for that. There is a place where even in our asking and our thanking, we are at this level of deep dependence. Dependence is also a word that people don't like. I don't want to be dependent. Okay? There's even a diaper, adult diaper named Depends. Okay? Who would want that, right? Like you have to be dependent on somebody else, and you can't do it on your own because we want freedom, we want power, we want the freedom to do whatever we want. In fact, the asking and the thanking ties us into God, into this beautiful dependence. Okay? Where this is what it means to have a Lord that present, knowing our needs and providing for them. Johnny on the spot. Perfect timing. Another request that we're called to make is forgive us as we forgive. We don't do this often. Every time we pray, what would happen if we actually said, I need forgiveness? What I really need is not that car, is not that job. Right now, what I really need is forgiveness from God. I need forgiveness from others. That is going to be a game changer. That's going to change the way I engage my world and my future. But when we ask, guess what? We're asking God who is so generous, who would even send his own son, who also knows what is so wise for us, and knows that when we don't forgive, we hold on to all of this radioactive toxin in our souls, and he has to try to free it from us. These are the things that when we get to ask regularly with the right heart, with thanksgiving, brings us to God's face, moves us in his kingdom. The last one, lead us not into testing, but deliver us from evil. Now, a lot of the translations say temptation, and it sounds really bad. Like, God, I'm kind of scared of you. You're going to trip me up. You're going to throw me a curveball. You're going to try to tempt me just to mess me up, right? It's kind of like I have a dog, and sometimes I actually do not to tempt her, right? I test her. I put something yummy in front of her, and I say, wait, right? And she's like, sometimes she starts drooling. She wants it so bad, right? And I don't do that just to say, and then take it away. And say, nah, too bad. Or have her grab it and then just, bad dog, bad dog. Actually, there's a test involved. Will she trust me? Will she learn that kind of trust where I always give it to her after she's waiting, by the way. But this is basically saying, I know life is not just about getting through easy. There's going to be battle. There's going to be difficulty. There's going to be places where I'm so confused, I don't understand why this is happening. I thought you were a good God. You're going to be tested in your faith. You're going to be tested in your willingness to follow him, in your discipleship. That's the reality of life. If you haven't clued in on that, you're living in a bubble. Jesus is thrown into the desert for testing for 40 days by the Spirit of God. Because out of that comes this deep awareness of God's supply, of his goodness. He had to wait, and he had to fight it out. But what this is saying is, I know, apart from you, God, I will not make it. But I also know, because you are good, you will not give me something that I cannot handle. You won't throw me to the lions to make it eaten up. You will give me something and you will support me. Not only that, you will bring me through, you will deliver me through. And I trust you for that. And I pray and I ask you for that. I'm thankful for that. If you pray this prayer like it's meant to be prayed, it transforms your experience and your relationship with God. You're brought to his face. The things that you thought you needed so desperately were asking, they begin to change. You ask for the things that God wants. And you begin to see he provides. He comes through in spades. and you're able to respond to Him in thanks. That's what we're going to do in our daily connects, by the way, this week. Every day is going to be part of the Lord's Prayer. So Monday, Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Tuesday, your will be done. Your kingdom come. Wednesday, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Thursday, we're going to do something a little different because it's Thanksgiving. And then Friday will be, give daily bread, so on and so forth. We'll finish out the week doing the Lord's Prayer as a way of engaging us in this pattern of asking with thanks. Have you bow your head for thanks?